Hello friends, in this video I will show you how you can save your MQTT messages coming into your broker into a MySQL database. Recently, I had been experimenting with MQTT and I was able to publish and subscribe messages through different brokers. But when it came to saving and viewing these published messages from my IoT devices, I was not able to find a simpler solution for this because most of the brokers available online did not have this facility of saving these incoming messages into a database for viewing them later. Most of the solutions which I found online recommended that we subscribe to a topic and we receive all the messages that are coming to that topic as a subscriber and then later save these incoming messages into a database. But I did not like this solution because I thought that there must be some better way wherein the broker itself can save these incoming messages into a database for later processing. For example, my devices, the GPS tracking devices, the WildTrack series devices, they can publish messages using HTTP post requests or using MQTT over TCP. So I did some research online and I found that even the famous Mosquito broker also does not support any customization wherein we can save the incoming messages to a MySQL or any other database. Then after a lot of research, I found this one more broker called as EMQ. So this EMQ broker is called as Erlang MQTT Broker, and this is how they have defined it on their site. EMQ Erlang MQTT Broker is a distributed, massively scalable, highly extensible MQTT message broker written in Erlang OTP. EMQ is fully open source and licensed under the Apache version 2.0. So EMQ implements both MQTT 3.1 and 3.1.1 protocol specifications, and it supports some other protocols like WebSockets and SockJS. So this is the architecture of EMQ cluster, and this open source broker was written in Erlang. I didn't know much about Erlang at that time, so the word sounded new to me, and the good thing was the broker was open source and it was hosted on GitHub, and there are a lot of documentation available to install this broker and start experimenting with it. So what is this Erlang? So this is what I learned about Erlang. Erlang is a programming language used for creating concurrent applications which need to be scaled massively and which need high availability. So for example, the banking softwares which need these kind of solutions are all developed using Erlang, and also some e-commerce softwares are written in this. But for me, it was a weird cryptic language and it didn't look similar to any of the programming languages I have known. So how is this EMQ broker different? The good thing about this EMQ broker is that it allows to write plugins, meaning these plugins can be used to tap the incoming MQTT messages as well as outgoing messages using hooks. And hooks are some functions which are called when certain events occur, like suppose if a client is connected to the broker, a function gets called, and inside that function you can write some code to handle like and you can see, you can get the information like what type of client is connected and all those things. Here are some functions which are called when certain events occur, like suppose if a client is connected, a function gets called, and a client is subscribed, then a function gets called, and whenever a client publishes a message, then a particular function is called, and that function will receive the incoming message as a parameter. And there are different events available like message delivered, message acknowledged, and client disconnected. So you can write your code in Erlang and process the event and take any specific actions based on that. So what I wanted was, I wanted to collect all the incoming messages or all the published messages which my devices are publishing to the broker, and I want to do some processing on it, and I wanted to see whether I can save these messages onto a database. So that was my main goal, but the problem was I did not know Erlang and it was a little complicated for me. So next what I did was I installed this EMQ broker onto an AWS instance, and then I looked at their different plugin examples, and there is a default plugin example called as plugin template, and this template has all these hooks enabled by default, and you can just go and put your code into these hooks, and these hooks gets called whenever this particular event occurs. So what I did is I went into the plugin template and I inserted my code here inside this on underscore message underscore publish. So this function gets called whenever a device publishes a message to the broker, and that message is passed into this variable called as message. So here what I'm doing is I'm collecting that message into a message string, and this is some Erlang code which converts incoming messages which is in the form of a tuple. Tuple is an Erlang term, you can Google about it, and it converts this tuple into a message string, and then it posts to a REST API server, which is open source REST API backend which I use. It's called as Dreamfactory. I will show you more about it, how it can be used. So what I did is whenever the message is coming into the broker, I'm making a HTTP post to a REST API endpoint which will log the message to a database. So this is the REST API endpoint. This Dreamfactory software, what it does is it will give you REST API access to all your database tables. So here I am able to directly access the log table, and this is the authentication key I am using, and the Dreamfactory software is installed along with the EMQ broker on the same instance itself. So I am able to use this localhost IP address. So the EMQ broker is receiving the incoming messages and saving onto the MySQL database using this Dreamfactory software. So this is how the code looks, which collects the incoming message and creates a HTTP post request to a localhost REST API endpoint. So this is how I am posting the messages. This is the message format I am using. So this is how I am posting the HTTP request. Now let me show you how this MQTT message is getting posted onto the MySQL database. This is the MQTT client software I am using to publish the messages, to show you guys how the message is getting published and getting saved onto the database. So the software is called MQTT.fx, and I am publishing a message which is a JSON string which will contain the parameters like latitude, longitude, time, and the device ID, which are very common in case of a GPS tracking device. So, and I am also subscribing to the topic electron here, and so that we can see the incoming messages. So now let me publish this message. Before that, I will show you this REST API endpoint I am using. So this is the Dreamfactory software which is showing me the database contents using the REST API. So here I can see the contents of the log table. Now as you can see, these are the MQTT messages that are already published and collected into a MySQL database. So now let us see the most recent one is the log ID 89. Now let us publish a message and see if it gets arrived onto the MySQL database. We'll type some numbers, 999444 something. Okay, and we'll publish this message, and we can see that the message has arrived here. So device ID, world track, and latitude and longitude are correct. Now we'll refresh this page and see if the data was collected onto the database. So as you can see here, it is collected in log ID 90, which is an auto increment ID value. So the message has arrived here. So it's 90 now. Now let us publish some messages quickly using MQTT. So now I will click it 10 times and see if messages have arrived. So they seem to have arrived onto the subscriber here, and at the same time the messages will be saved 10 times onto the database. Okay, so it was 90 and now it's 100. So all the 10 messages got successfully saved onto the MySQL database. So let me show you how I am able to save all these messages from the MQTT broker to the MySQL database using the Dreamfactory REST API backend. Now I will show you how to install the EMQ broker and the Dreamfactory software side by side and configure them so that the MQTT messages reach the MySQL database safely. So let's get started, and we'll start by installing the we'll start by creating a AWS instance. We'll create a new instance. So we will select Ubuntu 16.04 something. Okay, and we'll select t2.medium. Next we'll select around 30 GB of storage. Okay, we'll call this EMQ group. It's a security group, and We'll go ahead and review and launch. Okay, so we'll say launch. So I will use a already existing pair. So let's go and see. So our instance is initializing now. We'll call this here EMQ instance. Now we'll create an IP address for this instance while it is initializing. Okay, the instance is installed successfully. Now we will see if we can attach a elastic IP address for this. So we'll create a new address, allocate, close, and we will attach this, associate it to a instance which is EMQ instance. We'll associate it and we'll go back to the instance. Okay, now we have this IP address for the EMQ instance. So now nothing should come here because nothing is installed on this instance now. Now let us try to connect to this instance via SSH access. Let's take the IP address and use PuTTY to connect to it. We provide the authentication key. Okay, and then the user name will be Ubuntu by default. Okay, so first we will try to install the EMQ broker. So installation, everything is given here. So before this we need to install some other things like we need to install the build tools. So it will be sudo apt get install build essentials. So we give S and it will install the tools which are needed for building the code. Okay, first we need to do sudo apt get update. It will update the repositories. Now we will run the install build essentials. And then we need to install Erlang. So we do that using sudo apt get install Erlang. Erlang is needed to run the EMQ broker. Okay, now Erlang is installed, and we'll go ahead and execute this. There are different installation instructions given on the EMQ documentation site, and we will choose the option which is installing from source, so that we can modify the source code and get our code working using the plugins given by EMQ. So we will execute this. Okay, so it is done. Now we'll execute this next function, which will start the broker. Okay, so it's listening on port 1883 by default. We'll exit this. We'll press Ctrl C twice, and now we will see if this IP address is having the broker enabled. We'll create a new profile here. New profile, we call this EMQ, and we'll give the IP address for instance. Port number is this, and then everything will leave as it is. Okay, apply and cancel. So this is EMQ. Now we'll try to connect to it, and we will not be able to connect to it because the firewall has not been disabled. Okay, now we will go to EC2 and go to security groups, and then we go to the EMQ group, and in inbound options we can edit it and allow access for port number 1883. Just copy paste this, and we'll also allow port 80, and we'll also allow one more port, which is 18083, because the EMQ broker creates a dashboard application running on this port. So this particular dashboard application can be used to enable and disable the plugins. So we save it, and now we can try to go and connect here. Okay, now looks like EMQTT has started. Now we'll try to connect to it. Okay, so it is connected now, and we'll try to publish a message to a topic called as test, and we'll also subscribe to the topic called test. Okay, I will publish this same message twice, and we can see that the message has arrived successfully on the subscriber. So we are assured now that the EMQTT broker is running successfully on our instance. Now the next step what comes is we need to install the Dreamfactory software, and which will collect the messages that are coming into the EMQ broker and save it onto the MySQL database. So let's go ahead and start on that. So for installing MySQL, we'll follow these steps. Update, and then yes, new password for the MySQL root user. So we will give it Valetron, Valetron, and then the next step, enter the password for root. So it will ask some basic configuration options. So we don't want this. No. Change the password for root. No. You allow anonymous users. Yes. No. This is remove anonymous users. So it's no. Disallow root login remotely. No. Remove test database and access to it. No need to remove anything. Reload privileges table. Yes. Okay, we are set now. Let's type MySQL. Okay, so MySQL is installed and it's denying me access because I didn't use the password. So we are ready to install Dreamfactory now. Let's go and try to install Dreamfactory. So these are the first steps. Everything is given here. How we can install it from GitHub. So we'll just follow those steps. Install curl, zip and unzip, and then we get the 7.1 PHP repo because Dreamfactory is nothing but a Laravel application, and Laravel is a PHP framework. Enter to continue. So we'll continue and we'll call update. Done. So we'll be installing NGNIX server, and we'll not be installing anything related to Apache. So we'll quit those steps and go and install the NGNIX option directly. Okay, and then we call this configure php fpm. And here we need to find this line which reads CGI fix path info, and we need to remove the comment and make it 0. So we need to find this. Okay, so this is the line, and we'll make it 0. So this is what they have asked. We make it 0, remove the comment and say Control O, enter, and Control X. After this, we don't need to install the MongoDB extension, but anyway we'll install it. Install MongoDB. Okay, then we call this, and then we enable the MongoDB extension. Okay, then we need to go to the home directory, which we are already in, and then directory. After this, we need to install the composer. Okay, In this step, we need to make sure that we have modified this variable called df user. Df user is Ubuntu in our case. So this is a user that is been logged into this Linux OS. Okay, it's installed now. So they ask that we need to log out and log back in. So if I click log out, the whole thing gets exited. We can log in again. I will just save these settings as EMQ. Okay, now we will go to installation settings, and then we'll go to the installation of the MySQL database, and we'll create some users so that the Dreamfactory can access it. So this is for starting the MariaDB database. MariaDB is an equivalent of MySQL, but since we already installed it, we don't need to execute these steps. But we can log in using the root password. The password was Valetron, and here they already give you the ready instructions. We create a database called the Dreamfactory, which will be used by the Dreamfactory application, and then we call grant users to the Dreamfactory database using the df admin username. Okay, and then we flush the privileges and we call quit. Okay, now we'll go ahead and download the Dreamfactory onto a folder, and then we will install it into the opt/Dreamfactory folder. Then we change the ownership for this user. Our user is Ubuntu, and then we enter that folder and download the Dreamfactory open source software from GitHub. And then we install. Then we enter the environment variable setup. So the database we are using is MySQL, which is 1, and then the host is localhost, and the database port is 3306 by default. The database name was Dreamfactory, and the username was dfadmin. Password is also dfadmin. Okay, the password is dfadmin. Okay, now we go and edit the look at the environment variable. So here they ask to remove the comments or uncomment the lines which say db charset and db collision. So we'll go there. So these are the two lines, we'll uncomment them, and at the end for db collision they ask to add the string, so we'll add those things. Okay, and After this it's Control X and Y. And then we say df setup. So here it will ask the default user which is used to log into the Dreamfactory software. So you can give whatever name you want, and the email address can be ravi@tron.com, and the password I will choose something. Okay, and now we need to change the folder permissions. And again here you have to make sure that you are changing this variable called, or the username called dfuser to Ubuntu. Clear the cache. Okay, the Dreamfactory setup is complete, but it's still not launched because we still need to install a server and launch it. So for this we will use NGNIX server. So we'll install it. We'll go to the sites available folder, which will have the default file which will be backed up, and then we use the nano editor and to edit the contents. So the entire file should look like this. That's why we need to copy the whole thing and paste it in this file. For this we will use Ctrl K and we will delete all the contents of the file and paste this thing using the right click option. So now we have this, and we say Ctrl O, enter, and Ctrl X. So the file is written now, and now we can restart this PHP FPM service and engines. Okay, now let us see if this Nginx server is running properly. Now in the above application, what we did is we told the Nginx server to listen on port number 80, and then on port 80 it needs to serve the contents of this folder, which is opt Dreamfactory public. So Dreamfactory application files will be served to the user whenever he accesses the port number 80. So port number 80 is HTTP port, and if you give the IP address, it will by default access port number 80. As you can see, now the Dreamfactory application has been installed, and now we can log into this application using the default username and password which we entered during the setup process. Okay, Ravi@valetron.com and your password whichever you selected there. So once you log in, you need to do multiple things. First thing what I do is I create roles. So the roles are permissions, which are permissions or authorization levels you create for your devices or any application. So the first role I create is device role. So this uh, device role will have access to everything. So it can have access to all these things, and here the access can be get, post, put, patch, and delete, and the requester can be API or script. We save this, and then in apps we go and create an API key. We go create, we call it device app, and the role will be the device, and this API key will have access to all the things which we selected there. So, and here we'll say no storage required because it's just a remote access key. And now the next step is to create a database or create a connection to the MySQL database. For this, we go and to the services, and then here we go and create a service which is a MySQL service. This software can give access to almost any database you want. So here we can select database and it's MySQL. Config. In config, we need to give the port numbers 127.0.0.1, which is the host, and the port number is 3306, and the database is Dreamfactory. Okay. And the username, which we already know, is dfadmin, and password is also dfadmin. You can leave all this blank and say save. So the MySQL database is there now. Possibly we can see the schema here. Whatever whatever tables are already there in the Dreamfactory database, which were created by the Dreamfactory application during the installation process, should all be visible here. Okay, here is the MySQL database, and here you can see that these are all the default tables. Now I'll create my own table, which will be called log, and the label will be log table. So table used to store coordinates, and we'll add some fields. The first field which I want to add is log ID. So this is of type ID, and it can be null so that the user need not send it all the time. And then the next one is latitude. Type can be string, and it can also be null. Longitude, string, hello null, and add field. Latitude, longitude, we need the time, and in time can be date time type. Next will be device ID. I call it dev ID. Add field. Okay, now we click save, and the whole database gets saved, and this is the database structure now, and the log ID will be the primary key or the ID. So now we can see the contents of this database using the app key which was provided to us. So we'll copy this thing, and we go to API/v2/mysql/tables/log. So with this we should be able to access this, but we will not be allowed to access because a key is required for this. So this key we already created here. Copy this and add it here. API underscore key is equal to this one. So this database is empty now, so it's giving you a empty JSON string. Now in Dreamfactory, we can go to data and select the database, and our table name is log. Must be at the end. Okay, this is the log table. We say set service, and here I can create a row 1 2 3 4 5 6, and I'll leave the time blank, and device ID is wallet all track, and I click save. So a row got created, and now if I refresh this link, the database is updated with that row. So this is how we can add the rows to the database. Now what I will do is, and if I make a post request to this particular URL, I can create table rows as well. I will show this using the Fiddler software. So in Fiddler, we can create post requests in the composer section, and here you can copy this thing and paste it. We don't need to pass log ID. Okay, and okay, now if I click execute, the database has been updated with one more row now. So we can click and easily update the database table with additional rows. So now using this whole process, we can create post request from our Erlang MQTT Broker, which is EMQ, and using the same procedure we can generate HTTP requests from the EMQ broker to create rows in our MySQL database. Using this same process, we can generate HTTP requests from the EMQ broker, and the messages that are coming into the broker will be posted to the database, and we can see the messages arriving here. So now let us see how we can do this. First thing is, we need to go to the, so this has exited, we'll connect again, EMQ. Okay, we need to log into CD. The folder is CD EMQ Relax. We log in there, and then let me show you the structure of this folder here. The EMQ Relax folder has all these contents. The binary executables which we compiled are present in _rel, and the plugins will be present in the deps folder. So we'll go to cd deps. As you can see, these are all the plugins which are present by default, and there are different plugins for MySQL Access, MongoDB Access, and Postgres SQL Access also. But I don't know much about all this Erlang code, whatever is written in there to create authentication and all those things, but we will see how we can use this default plugin template which is given. This plugin template has different hooks which we can use, and we can put our code into these hooks, and we will be able to generate, we'll be able to capture the incoming messages on the MQTT. So now let us go to cd emq underscore plugin and cd src, and then we edit the file nano emq plugin underscore template.erl. Okay, we go to this. So these are the hooks which I was talking about. on session created, on client subscribe, everything. So all this, the inside code of between this dot and this arrow mark gets executed whenever this particular event occurs. The function of our interest is on message publish, which is present here. So this is the code. We will just put this code here. So I just replace this on message publish with whatever was working for me. So this is the on message publish function. Now this is the hook which gets called whenever the message is published to the broker from any of the devices. Okay, here this is the url. What I'm doing here is I'm posting to an localhost url instead of creating a post request to the given IP address, because the Dreamfactory server is present on the same server, and two softwares can talk to each other on the local host itself instead of going to the web and coming back. So the whole posting process happens inside the same server or the machine itself. So now here the main thing to change here will be the API key. Let's get this API key and replace this with that. Okay, so I think we are done now. Now we can exit this and we go to and we call make. So the code is compiled now. Now we can, now before doing this, we need to go to this 18083 port number. In this port number, the EMQ software installs a dashboard which can be used for different configurations settings for this EMQ broker. So that's why I enabled this port number earlier in the security groups. So it will have a default login, and the default username and password will be admin, and the password is public. Okay, so this is how the dashboard looks. It will show you real-time stats of the broker. So you can see the messages that were published and how many messages were published, received or acknowledged, or if there was any messages that were dropped. And here the topic here the section of our interest is the plugin section, wherein there are different plugins present, but the plugin which we just compiled is the plugin template, which is not enabled by default. So we just hit the start and the plugin will be enabled. So after this we can go back to our MQTT client, which is MQTT and again try to subscribe and then go to publish section, and we can publish the same message and see if the same message arrives onto our database which was earlier arriving on our subscriber here. So we click publish. Okay, now I'm subscribed, publish, and the message has arrived here. Now let us see if the same message has arrived on the database. So this is our database. We'll refresh this. Okay, hold on, we just compiled it, but we didn't restart the server. So what we need to do is we need to _rel / emqttd / bin / emqttd and restart. Okay, now we will refresh the dashboard to see if the plugin is still enabled after the restart. The plugin will be disabled by on restart, so we need to enable it again. So but the plugin is enabled. Now let us see if the publish and subscribe are working fine. We'll subscribe, then we'll publish. Message is arriving here. Okay, we are successfully able to send the MQTT message from the publisher to the database. So as you can see here, the message has arrived successfully on the database. Now if we send multiple messages with the different numbers, 95, publish. Okay, it has arrived here. Now we can also create multiple posts. This is an array, so we can easily three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So single publish should create 10 rows. Oh my, there was an error. The comma should not be there. So we'll say publish. So there are 10 rows created. So we'll see now again, this is the 18th log and the next log should be at 28. Publish. Okay, so successfully all the 10 messages are getting updated onto the database using the MQTT publish mechanism. So in this way you can send the MQTT messages from your IoT devices to the MySQL database using the Dreamfactory backend, which is a very good software which gives you REST API access to all your database tables, and you can very easily access and view all the database contents and post any new rows or any news rows or any new records onto the tables very easily. So, and the dashboard which is provided by EMQ Broker is also very useful, and it can give you real-time stats on what is happening on your broker, and if there is any, and if there are any packets getting dropped, or how much, if there are any problems happening, you can directly view it on the dashboard here itself. Okay, that's all I wanted to show you guys, and this works quite fast since it's happening on the local host. There is no lag or anything. So now suppose if I just send this one message around 10 times, I'll click this 10 times. So that was not fast enough, but still log ID is 28 and it should be 38. So all the messages are receiving successfully on the database without any problems. So I have not done load testing on this, but the EMQ people claim that it's a very massively scalable MQTT broker, and you should have no problem in connecting multiple devices, and which will be sending multiple MQTT publish messages to the broker, and the broker keeps logging these messages onto the MySQL database using the Dreamfactory backend. So that's all for now. If you like this video, hit the like button, share with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more such content. Thank you for watching.